Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Kyoto Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, with the NFL draft officially in the books, it's time to move forward with business as usual. There's a lot of stuff going on, man, from, equipment fittings and introductions to the facility and the staff, which, mind you, a lot of people blown away by the Bolt. I sure was. From to off-season programs, rookie minicamp. We got some stuff to catch up on, man. Our first look at some of these rookies, which, mind you, man, this team, the way that they're building, the way that they drafted looks massive. We're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. But just catch you guys up on some of the action, some of the first look at the rookies at minicamp, some of the off-season program stories that we're already starting to hear, some of the camp battles that have been formulating over the past week or so. Exciting times to come, man. It feels like this season's going to come a little quicker than seasons past, as the Chargers do have that Hall of Fame game coming up on the 31st. Of course, training camp a few weeks before that, and a whole bunch of interesting storylines in between. So let's catch up with the happenings in the Chargers since the draft has transpired. Before we do get into all the juicy details, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take advantage of the free pick on screen. It's a great way to support my platform while having some fun along the way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Your Chargers, first look at the rookies at this team at off-season programs. Some fun stories to catch up on in today's episode, man. First and foremost, the rookie minicamp, which was awesome to read over. Not a whole lot of information coming out nowadays. We're getting little bits and pieces here and there. But the Chargers really do like to operate, a little closer to the vest. Now we have the Jim Harbaugh, team in place. You're not going to see a whole lot of what we'll say are leaks, but you are going to see some interesting storylines progress. And what's funny enough is that I think that might be the case because the Chargers are in some ways a transparent team. They're going to tell you what they're going to do, and then they're just going to do it. They don't want to give their opponents any opportunity to further look into how they're going to accomplish these things. And anyway, that being said, we did get some juicy details as to what the Chargers have been up to since the draft, with the offseason program, but most notably in this video, rookie minicamp, which does give us a nice preview of things to come. The first thing I just kind of wanted to show you guys, just to show, again, this photo maybe doesn't even do it justice, the size of this team. Like we mentioned a second ago, man, like this football team is being built through toughness, through identity of size and grit and aggressiveness. It feels like you can see that represented through the rookies that were brought in and a lot of the guys that were selected after the fact as well. You're going to see, of course, 9 or 10 guys selected by the Chargers in this year's draft, but then a whole lot of undrafted free agents, some other guys from last season as well as like Morris Brash and these other guys that are on their second year from last season, but definitely some very notable size all over the newbies making their way onto the field, man. From, Trey Harris, the 6'3" physical wideout, from Omarian Hampton, the 6-foot huge running back on this roster. And then the undrafted guys as well. We got to talk a little bit about Rocket Sanders. We haven't talked about Rocket Sanders yet. The Chargers undrafted rookie running back out of South Carolina, the big, massive, a lot of things to say about him that you could say about Omarian Hampton. I think that's going to be a huge steal in this season's, undrafted guys. And, honestly, filling out the roster and the practice squad, I think that's also a pretty big emphasis here with the kind of players that, you want representing the Chargers going forward is important. And I think we're seeing a huge step forward in that, just with the size, the strength, the presence that the Bolts have been building over the last couple of seasons. And I think it's really relevant, or evident, I should say, in year 2 of the build in Jim Harbaugh's image just how much progression we've made in that direction. So exciting stuff. Now, speaking of which, Jim Harbaugh, one of the storylines coming out of rookie minicamp is his unconventional yet effective method of rookie minicamp, which is different than what you see around the league in terms of how they like to bring their guys in, work them out, introduce them to the NFL, so to speak. And it is something I think is quite intelligent. You know, one thing that they're not doing, you're not going to see 11 on 11s or 1-on-1s, nothing like that. The team is taking their time with individual player drills this season, getting to know these guys up close, understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their personalities, their work ethic. It really feels like the individual game is at focus with Jim Harbaugh, and he really likes to take his time with every integral piece of the roster, not just the big guys, that we were drafting, which we'll get to in just a second, but also the undrafted guys. He's looking for gems. A really big part of this offseason for Jim Harbaugh is finding the diamonds in the rough, and it's a really awesome way to see Jim Harbaugh attack this part of the offseason, which reflects a strategy that could end up working in his favor. Now, this comes in from Daniel Popper per The Athletic. He describes the Chargers rookie minicamp dissected in sections, right? Attacked in section. He describes the sections as follows. The first one being individual drills, like we talked about before. He challenged his players to master 3 drills a piece, whether it be, guys with the wide receivers, I would imagine, the offensive line. They wanted to make sure their technique, challenging these players, gave them a closer look at who they are as individuals and where they can push them, where they need work. Definitely cool to see, again, the individual attention there. The second section was revolving more around special teams. Now, a lot of these guys, especially the ones that were drafted late or undrafted, are going to be competing for, backup spots and special teams reps all over, the back end of the roster. And this is where the Chargers coaching staff can reflect some of its strengths. Coach Fickens, definitely one of the best you're going to see in the NFL in terms of special teams. And Ficken has a great history of adding special team talent. So having his focus on these guys, getting them, I think he mentioned there was mostly, drills focused on kick coverage. Getting as much, turnover there is very important, because we did end up losing quite a few big pieces this offseason in terms of our special teams. Nick Neiman probably being the biggest one of the very best special teams player in the nation, not on this roster anymore. So finding those guys to help fill out those spots, very important, but also, again, trying to individually look at these guys in terms of gems and steals. The third was strength and conditioning with Ben Herbert. Now, the Michigan Wolverines had a very interesting reputation when it came to this sort of thing. It was very brutal. And it did churn out some very tough football players, and that's something that was very evident in Jim Harbaugh's plan as he brought Ben Herbert with him, man. They were going to be testing these guys, for their physical abilities, their toughness, their strength, obviously, all the things that revolve around strength and conditioning. He handed them off to Ben Herbert to see what they were capable of there. And then fourth was probably the bulk of it, what I would imagine. Okay, I wasn't there, but when you're reading into it, it feels like this was probably the big one. This was more of like the scheme work. Get them out there, running through plays for evaluation. This is really where you can kind of nitpick and identify pieces of their play and of their game that could use improvement or focus in on their strengths to help them find, roles within the roster. And Harbaugh described this method of getting to know their strengths right before throwing them into, 11 on 11 drills right away, which is very smart. You think about the conventional method of pitting them against each other, the sharpest, iron sharpens iron, that all the stuff that can work, right? But I like the idea that he's saying is it's a way of working forward, not backwards. Let's see where we're starting, and then when we push them into those drills and into those, evaluations or whatever, you put them into those situations where they can compete, you can really hone in on the stuff that you learned at the very beginning, which definitely is very smart. Additionally, he explained why the draft picks did not participate in the competitive special teams and strength and conditioning drills. Now, I failed to mention that before. The guys drafted did not have to go through that part of rookie minicamp, and this was, funny enough, example of time management in Jim Harbaugh's part, because if you guys didn't know this, you're allowed a certain amount of time with your rookies, with your team, with, depending on the situation, if it's a new head coach, if it's this or that, the league allows a certain amount of time that you have with your players before training camp, right? And so Jim wanted to really make sure that he made the most of that time that he had with these new guys coming in. And he says that he already knows the draft picks, right? He understands these guys. He's been, studying them and dissecting their game for months. Hence why they're the players selected. So he wanted to focus on finding the diamonds, the gems in these other guys that maybe he didn't have quite as deep an evaluation of and tape and all this kind of stuff that goes behind these guys. He wants to really get in their face and understand who they are, considering he doesn't have that level of dissection in these guys as he does the draft picks, which I think is very, very smart. Everything that he's described so far in this unconventional way of running rookie minicamp seems very intelligent in a way to tackle it. It's kind of like when a kid gets excited to open up his presents on Christmas morning. You got these big ones sitting under the tree, and those are exciting, but looking through the small ones first is often the better move, is it not? Seeing if you find something exciting. You never know if there's an iPhone. I almost said iPod sitting under there. It's a tiny, but you never know. You never know. And I really do think that Jim Harbaugh, it reflects his time in Michigan. He was an excellent recruiter there, and I think that he's using a lot of that skill set and familiarity with these classes as well to really get in there and find some guys that will make a difference, a real difference, not just on our roster, but in the practice squad as well, which can be very important as well. One of my favorite parts of rookie minicamp, though I think comes to no surprise of anybody, the Omarian Hampton. I'm not going to say tape is in. I'm not going to say, result is in or anything like that. But the preview was kind of there. I'll show you guys this real quick from Twitter. Very little video coming out of rookie minicamp this season, which is, to be expected at this point. But Omarian Hampton, man, he looks unreal, dude. One of the few clips we got of him running drills, he looks insane. One of the biggest things that got me excited about Omarian when we were, going through all of the mock drafts and getting to know the running back class of this year, which was absolutely insane. The reason that he really separated himself from the beginning for me was his agility and fluidity at his size. Remember, he's 6 foot, 230 pounds. This is a big running back, and for him to be able to move, just watch one more time this drill, the fluidity in his movement, the decision making, the cuts, it's finite. It's refined. It's ready to go. It's NFL caliber. It's going to be insane, man. And it's one that I think that, as we get more exposure to these rookies and as we get to see more exposure to Omarian in particular, it's going to justify to a lot of people why he was the guy in the first round. There's still some people with that hang up of, man, Omarian, we love the guy, but a first round running back is a tall, order. And honestly, it's because this is a special circumstance in terms of player talent and honestly, ceiling from this guy is absolutely ridiculous. And one of the biggest things, like I said before, that separates him, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why I was so hyped on Omarian potentially becoming a Charger, or why I was excited about him as a prospect, because I honestly didn't think he was going to be a Charger. It seemed like one of those things where you daydream about it, you hope it, but it's not really something that happens. And when it finally happened, I was like, man, let's go. You guys saw I was absolutely, ecstatic. But that size, that speed, agility, fluidity, it all is very, very special. It was put on display in that clip. He moves so swiftly and naturally for his size. It really is the perfect blend of size demanded by a Jim Harbaugh running back, that size and physicality to run, in the middle of that line and find that, force and toughness and physicality in the run game, while also blending in, the speed and agility, this big playability. It reminds me so much of like a Saquon Barkley. It's, again, I don't want to make that comparison too much because they are very different players, but it feels like that threat is present, and that makes me so excited about his ceiling with the Chargers. I'm really eager to see him work with these traits as well in mind later in the season with Justin Herbert, dude, in training camp. I honestly, dude, the thought of what we saw, okay, I'm going to show you guys one more time. I want you guys to imagine, the fluidity that you're seeing, the speed, right? The agility, all of this put on display while Justin Herbert is looking to check down to his running back. Right? Are you guys starting to see the vision here a little bit in terms of, because I've been pounding this one, this table for this narrative, for a long time now. I think that Omarian Hampton's receiving ability is going to blow a lot of people out of the water this year. And it'll also keep Omarian on the field a lot more than we do expect, because he is a 3-down back. His movement, man, it offers extremely exciting upside as a receiving back. I think Justin Herbert's going to love this guy. We already have evidence of Justin Herbert liking to check down to the running back per the entire Austin Eckler era. I don't know, man. I'm real excited to think about the potential here with Omarian Hampton and the Chargers quarterback, seeing how he likes to attack that part of the field. And you're going to see a lot of big plays from Omarian when he's out open in space. And this little clip, man, that we saw, it carried a lot of weight for me. This unhuman fluidity for his size is going to be special. It's really going to open up the playbook for Herbert and the run game, everything. We'll talk a little bit about some of the diamonds. We talk, Jim Harbaugh talking a lot about the diamonds that he's searching for. Well, let's look at one that's become very popular in the Chargers fandom, and Rocket Sanders. First off, it seems the only non-drafted player to be excused from competitive drills was Rocket Sanders. Like we talked about before, coach said, hey, he knows these guys. He wants to get to know the other guys a little bit better. It would be a disservice to the new guys to, continue to learn things that he already knows with the draft picks. Well, included in that, and the only player included in that, was Rocket Sanders. He said he had some awesome tape. He knows him well. And that is a really good sign that Rocket Sanders may be considered a shoo-in at running back 3 or 4. We don't want to say, anything's a certainty at this point of the season. Absolutely not. But that is a pretty big tell that you like the guy a lot, that you expect him to be a part of this team in some capacity. And Rocket Sanders, man, we haven't really had much time talking about the undrafted free agents. So let me take a second to explain why there were many people, not just myself, but many people hyped about Rocket Sanders in that signing. The dude is a beast, right? He's almost viewed in some people's perspectives from this draft class like a Omarian Hampton light type running back. He ran a 4.46 at 6 feet tall, 230 pounds. Does that sound familiar? This dude is a monster. He posted 880 yards rushing, 311 yards receiving, scored 13 touchdowns. His 3-down skill set really reflects well on him being a decent backup for Omarian Hampton. A lot of really nice upside here. Now, some people had him going as high as the 5th round. He ended up, luckily falling to the Chargers in undrafted free agency. And there were some people, I remember reading some comments, after the news broke that the Chargers were the team to sign him. There was a guy saying, how many running backs do the Chargers need? This guy would have been an awesome, RB2 or even starting potential in another squad, which would have been crazy. But that just tells you how serious this team is about making that run game a featured part of their team and identity. There's a lot of people that like this guy a lot of people that say he's got some traits of Omarian Hampton. Now, of course, Hampton, exceptional at pretty much everything at the running back position, and Sanders is nowhere near as refined at this point, right? There's a lot of potential here, but there's a lot of work to be done before we get anywhere close to that. But there were many that were high on Sanders as a late-round gem for his physical attributes and production of South Carolina. And it's one guy that I know a lot of people were very excited about that has a lot of potential with this team. So like Hampton, his biggest wow factor for me was his speed, even at his size. He's not as fluid as Omarian Hampton, not even close. But, man, 230 pounds moving at the speed of, a 4.46? That's pretty bonkers. So I like Rocket Sanders a lot, man. He could be a pretty exciting addition here. A couple other guys mentioned. Luke Grimm, another player that was mentioned in some of the articles that we're reading. This guy out of Kansas is a player I actually got to watch in person last year, played versus BYU. He actually had a pretty darn good game that game. Unfortunately, he was actually not too bad, posting 4 catches for 77 yards. I do remember him being, a bit of an annoyance when it came to converting. If I'm recalling the same player, this guy pretty sharp in his route running. He had some nice speed behind him. Of course, I looked that up. That was a 4.46. Exactly the same as Rocket Sanders. Fast player. And I think he definitely brings some upside. There's a lot of people high on him, number one. He wasn't a guy that I was like on my radar as, a potential depth piece for the team because I felt we were a little crowded at the time. But his skill set may end up earning him, a roster spot, a guy that works in special teams, a guy that, he got some reps in rookie minicamp as a returner. I'm sure that speed and his understanding of route running and angles and stuff like that, I think that's going to help him a lot in special teams. But if anything, I think, he does some of his best work out of the slot, and that could provide some nice insurance in terms of a slot wide receiver depth option for the Chargers. So there's Luke Grimm. Some of you guys very high on him, and honestly, we're starting to see some evidence as to why. The other guy that got mentioned was Steo Clotsz, tight end out of Iowa State. I actually remember when they announced him being signed to the Chargers as an undrafted free agent, he was listed at fullback. And then when looking a little bit more into the player, that's probably what he played more primarily in terms of position. And that's something that's very interesting. Coach did say, quoting him, saying he thinks he could be an above average core special teams player, which does certainly help his case out in making the roster. But if he does end up, part of the 53, look for him to be a competitor in terms of snaps at fullback for Scott Matlock. So that's pretty interesting there. One of the last things that I'll mention in terms of rookie minicamp was the front and center narrative that a lot of us are going to be following throughout the offseason. One of the more intriguing stories of the offseason is going to be this three-man battle at center. Harbaugh and Zion Johnson, Harbaugh said Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman have both been getting snaps at center during the offseason programs. And it looks like they've been rotating them in a way where they're seeing, maybe with equal reps, who's coming out on top. Harbaugh seems very, very convinced that Zion Johnson, no matter what, is going to start at one of these positions. But I didn't quite hear that for Bradley Bozeman, so take that for what you will. It's still very early in the process here. This is not the first time we've seen, Jim Harbaugh work out players, former guard to center. I watched a documentary, All or Nothing, with the Michigan Wolverines, where he did just that with one of his guards. And I don't remember if it ended up working out, but it's something that he likes to try, which I'm definitely not opposed to. But if he's referring to Zion as actually a center in this whole experiment, that makes for a very interesting scenario. Because what's happening at left guard all of a sudden? I don't know. I think more than likely he retains the left guard position duties, because we do have some solid competition at center that the Chargers could bring to the table here. There was the one player that was not mentioned in this, and that was Andre James at center, which is funny because depending on who you ask, he's the most likely starter this year. If you were to ask me, right, the safe answer for who's going to be the starting center for the Chargers in 2025 is probably Bradley Bozeman. That's probably the safe answer. My answer would definitely be Andre James, with the wild card being Zion Johnson. But I think, Andre James, to me, is the best case scenario out of all of this, right? Last season, Bradley Bozeman, it did not pan out well. It also did not pan out well for Andre James, but there was, a lot of explanation behind that. They changed systems and schemes. The Raiders were a disaster offensively. There's a lot of things that kind of played into, Andre James having an off year. He's very likely capable of bouncing back this season, coming back to a system and a scheme that he thrived in terms of power. Gap. He does have, what you're looking for physically. And in this case, and at this part of, of the offseason, you got to hope that we have something better than Bradley Bozeman. And being that Bradley Bozeman he was one of the worst centers in football last year, the ask to improve isn't too far of an ask. If you guys pick up what I'm putting down there. So anyway, I like Andre James. I think it would be an exciting, narrative to see him thrive in the offseason, but you'll have to wait and see. And then finally, meanwhile, it was Branson Taylor was getting reps at left guard like we expected the Chargers. Was it a 5th round or 7th round pick? 6th round pick? I don't remember. Coming in as a guy that potentially play a depth role for the Chargers on that offensive line. And then finally, the last thing I'll say here too, a fun narrative to follow. You guys like the team dynamic and leadership dynamic of the roster. A fun moment that unfolded as well for the Chargers was rookies Kyle Kennard and Jamari Caldwell getting to meet Khalil Mack for the first time. And this really does help reflect why Khalil Mack and his re-signing was such a big part of the offseason. As a player, we know what he is. He's going to offer you a lot of upside there. I shouldn't say a lot of production there. But some would argue as a leader, he offers just as much. Caldwell was starstruck, which was really funny in his press conference. Kennard ended up actually getting a text from Khalil Mack the night after the draft, telling him he was excited to have him on the team, but it was time to get to work. And that resonated with Kennard. And this mentorship that you're seeing from some of the veteran guys on the roster, it brings, a lot of it's going to go a long way for these young guys. And I think that's why the ceiling of Kyle Kennard is different on the Chargers than it would have been anywhere else. And the ceilings of some of these other guys that we're seeing in terms of offensive line, like Mekhi Becton, and his, continuing, bounce back this year. It's a lot better on this team than it is other teams. A lot of the rookies, Omarian Hampton, it's a different version you're getting on the Chargers than another squad because of how we're built and the veterans that we have in the building. Very excited to see how the Chargers let this all unfold. They both also mentioned how much they loved the Bolt. Tell you guys, if you haven't been to training camp, go. It's an awesome experience, and that the new facility is absolutely insane. The Bolt is state of the art. These guys are definitely getting a taste of some of the luxury facilities in the NFL. So you guys let me know some of the storylines that you're looking forward to as we get closer to training camp. Guys that I'm very excited to see, like, Mickens here in the photo, Trey Harris, another guy that we're all very excited to see. I think Chargers have a lot of mystery still to be unraveled on this roster. This was a really good first look at everything. The size is impressive. Omarian looks impressive. There's some, diamonds starting to be unearthed, and Luke Grimm and Steve Clotz, and Steo Clotz, and Rocket Sanders and all this kind of stuff. But we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now, and that's what makes the offseason so exciting for Chargers fans. Even when we don't have football, the anticipation of football and building this team, finding success in building this team like we saw last year, enough to hold me by another couple of months before the Chargers take the field versus the Detroit Lions, the Hall of Fame game. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, watch out for Omarian Hampton, man. Top 5 running back in the NFL his rookie season. Maybe. I'll say top 10's pretty safe, though.